Good afternoon. It's a really horrible afternoon this afternoon. I'm chatting with Martine Bolton, founder of Sunshine Corporate and Personal Development. Hello, Martine, are you there?
I'm here, Jill. Hi.
What have you been up to today?
It's my husband's birthday today, so I have to admit to being a bit distracted. So I had a very leisurely lunch, and I had one of those days because we're in this lockdown situation at the moment. I haven't quite been as focused and up and dressed and at my PC, by 8 o'clock or whatever, as I normally would. So this morning I found myself in my dressing gown until almost lunchtime. I had been a little bit of work, checked emails and replied to a few things. But yeah, it's kind of felt a little bit like almost like a day off today.
It's very hard at the moment to get focused, isn't it?
Well, it is actually, and because the nature of my work is predominantly training and face training, over the last sort of 6-8 weeks or so, that's all dried up. So most of the work that I have been doing is in terms of design work, learning new skills, a bit of personal development, all that kind of thing. So I'm kind of out of that flow of I've got to be here by this time and then I've got to be there by that time and I've got all these to do. So what I find is that unless I've got kind of quite a lot of structure in the day already, it's very easy to just become a bit kind of blasé and complacent. So goodness knows when everything eventually goes back to normal, I'm hoping it doesn't take me too long to get back in that place of, boom, boom, boom.
We're all a little bit worried about that, aren't we? Going back to so-called normal, what it will be like.
And goodness only knows what that's going to look like. So I think I mean, it would be nice to think that we could go back to something like normal, but I do feel that there are some things that will just never, ever be the same again. And, largely for the good.
Yeah.
So, let's hold that vision.
So describe to me what it is that you do.
So it's tricky, Jill. Sometimes for short, I tell people that I'm a personal development consultant. So that's a really good kind of catch-all title, but it doesn't necessarily speak of the activities that I get involved in. So when I'm being more long-winded, I say that I'm a trainer, a coach, consultant, author, also NLP practitioner, hypnotherapist. I've done a little bit of woo-woo stuff, so angelic Reiki, although I've never really did much with that. So largely it's about people to helping people to develop, really, I guess, but particularly in terms of personal development. And I find that kind of the biggest kind of thing that we are dealing with, which is affecting the quality of our lives, is what's going on up in our heads between our ears. And depending on what's happening up there, how you're thinking, that determines how you feel. How you feel is going to drive everything that you do, your actions, what you say, your choices and decisions. And all of that stuff together combines to result in a basic quality of life. And whilst it would be lovely to think that most of the time our thoughts are cool and calm and clear and logical, rational, constructive, positive, focused on all the good things that we want, the truth is for many of us that we have, a significant amount of, faulty and unhelpful thinking that really gets in our way. And I really do believe that, our thoughts create our experiences in life. And, for many of us, we need a little bit of help to ensure that we are directing those thoughts to what we want, so that we're literally creating with the kind of power of our minds, really, what we want and not what we fear. So what I find is that, many of us, if you're human, and I hope that most of us are, there will be times when when our thoughts go to places of worry and fear and doubt, we all carry a bit of negative and limiting beliefs that get in our way. Some of us are perfectionists, which doesn't sound like it's that much of a crime, but actually, if you are a perfectionist, in many ways that kind of can block you and limit you from achieving what you want to. Some of the time we engage in criticism, whether that's of ourselves, of other people. I really notice it of myself. Saturday night TV, I'll be sat there with Mr. B, my husband. It's not his real name, it's called Ed. but we'll be sitting there watching the game shows and that kind of thing. And I really find that inner critic coming out saying, and the judges will be saying, oh, I thought that was really good. And I'll be saying to him, I thought that was crap. It's just all the picky kind of criticisms come out. So I sometimes realise watching those shows that I'm not such a nice person as I think I am. So also with criticism comes comparison, and I think we all tend to compare ourselves with others, whether we do it consciously or not. And actually comparing ourselves with other people is really unhelpful. I think it's good to kind of to measure our progress and things like that, but not really in comparison to others, because we're all different, and some people will have strengths in other areas. So it's just the kind of the communal garden, foggy thinking, scattered thinking, overthinking that we all tend to do. So 101 ways in which our thoughts don't always help us, and when we get to recognise our own brand of kind of what I call craptastic thinking, that enables us really to kind of jump on it as soon as we see it. So it's not like overnight we can have this epiphany and we'll never think a negative thought again. Those thoughts will probably come in, particularly when we're faced with difficult times in our life. Anything that's new can kind of bring up kind of fears and concerns, unexpected events, things like that. The thoughts of worry, fear, doubt, etc. will come in, but it's just how quickly we recognise them and how soon we begin to kind of grab hold of the reins and then redirect our thinking down kind of constructive problem solving kind of thoughts, if that makes sense.
You recently wrote a book, didn't you? Your thinking is your superpower.
Yes. So,
and I think you go through some of that in your book, don't you? You talk about your thoughts and your thought process.
Yes. So again, I think because it's so central to our experience of life, everything that I learned really over the last, I've been looking at personal development type stuff for about 30 odd years. I remember my mum buying me a book for my 21st birthday, and it was called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And it was by an author called Florence Scovel Shinn. And I think it was probably written at the turn of the last century or something like that. So it's one of those books from the kind of the New Thought movement that right at the beginning of the sort of the 1900s. And all these people kind of came out of the woodwork and started talking about the power of positive thinking, and just how our thoughts were creative, not just in the sense of artistic creative, but how what we're thinking, it's almost like molding the the events of our lives. And I heard a coach once, so Michael Neal, he talks about himself being a super coach, like how you get supermodels. So Michael Neal is a super coach, and he's a really great guy, and he's really good at what he
is he
does.
in English? Is he in English?
He's American, but he lives in England, I believe. I mean, he's probably got plenty of
Tony Robbins.
So yeah, he's not in the same mould as Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins is just like this big kind of caricature of a superhero rah guy, isn't he? So much so that I think he's really losing his voice these days, which is very sad. So Michael Neal is almost like the flip side of Tony Robbins. He's much more kind of quiet and calm, and a bit more kind of Zen-like. And he has this analogy, and off the top of my head, I'm probably not going to articulate it quite as well as Michael Neal does, but he says it's almost like, your thoughts are like the camera, which is projecting images on the screen of your life. So I don't know if that, I don't know how that translated, but it's like everything that we think, it's like we send that out into the world, and that is what we will see. So the scenes of our life, if our life is a movie, we are playing out the scenes that are we're thinking with our minds, consciously or subconsciously.
How does that work along then with, say, cosmic ordering?
I think cosmic ordering is just, it ties in with that idea of the power of the mind and what we think about. We can, it's almost like we can create or invite that into our lives. So I haven't read the cosmic ordering books, but I think the concept is very simple. It's just, you basically, it's almost like the universe is your catalogue, and you can kind of go and flick through the catalogue and think about what are the things that I would like to, you know, have be, and then kind of put those out as a request to the universe. And if you believe that those things are you know, are in your path, then they will eventually come in. So, you know, you've probably heard also of the law of attraction.
Yes.
It's all the same stuff, really. Just that idea that, you know, that we create our own reality, and the thoughts that you think, when you truly believe them, you can make all of that stuff come true. So that's great when we're focusing on, you know, the impact that we want to have, the contribution that we want to make, you know, yes, the things that we want in our lives as well, to a certain extent. But when our thoughts are focused on what we're afraid of, what we don't want to happen, you know, the thing that seems to keep happening to us over and over again, when we're playing records in our heads that are just saying, you know, I'll never, I could never, I'm rubbish at,
Yeah.
you know, this awful thing keeps happening to me, you know, that's creating it. So it is all the same stuff, actually, I think.
You know, I never used to believe in some of those things until I worked a little bit with my sister, who does a bit of life coaching.
Yeah.
And she actually, you know, she challenged me several times on your thought process and how you start your day can change your day. You know how
Definitely,
it,
definitely. So I think we, you know, there are techniques, and I mention them in my book actually, about how you can. So it's like your thoughts are really important, because your thoughts influence how you feel, and actually it's how we feel. It's the, so without sounding too kind of 1967 kind of hippie woo woo on you, you know, people talk about, you know, vibrations, and human beings, you know, we carry a kind of an energy signature or an energy vibration around us. So you might have met some people and they seem to, you know, radiate positive energy, and you might also have met some people and they just seem to suck the life out of everybody. You know, the ones I mean, people sometimes talk about energy, you know, drains and radiators.
yes,
And I think that what's going on with that is that if you think about your mind and also your heart, and these two organs, you know, depending on how you're thinking and feeling, they emit a pretty strong, I'm going to call it magnetic frequency. You know, I was a bit rubbish at physics at school and biology, so I probably not explaining it in quite the scientific terms, but we do kind of emit, you know, frequencies, radio frequencies, magnetic energy, whatever it is. And particularly in terms of how you're feeling, you know, that creates an energy field around you, which, you know, which will draw like energies to you. So, for example, if you wake up in the morning, and some mornings, you know, we can wake up feeling, you know, for no reason that we can put our finger on it, just like everything isn't okay in the world. Or sometimes there is something that's not very good happening in your life, and you wake up and your energy isn't as kind of as high and as light and as, you know, kind of relaxed and loving, or whatever it is that you'd like to feel. as you would like it to. So there are some techniques we can do. First thing in the morning is a good time to do it, but any time throughout the day when you recognize that you're just feeling kind of off kilter, you're experiencing an emotion which isn't helpful to you, it doesn't feel good, and it probably isn't helping you, and you can kind of go through a set of activities, exercises that enable you to kind of start the day off as you mean to go on. So, for example, I've got 4 little emotions that I try and tune into some days. So on a day when I feel like I need a bit of extra help, I'll get up, I'll go downstairs, and I'm always up before anybody else in the house as well, so it's quite easy. And I just go through these 4 things. So I am relaxed, I am loving, I am happy, and I am confident. And I just repeat each statement 3 times slowly, and experiencing that feeling, bringing that feeling into my, I suppose, physical being. And probably only takes 10 minutes to do. And you just sit with those good, positive feelings. And then you kind of make a resolution to yourself that as far as is humanly possible, no matter what happens during that day, you're going to stubbornly refuse to allow anyone or anything to take you out of that place of feeling relaxed and loving and happy and confident.
Which is easier said than done, though, isn't it? Because some people or some situations are very trying.
They are. So the situations in life often give us a really strong invitation to go out of that happy place. And I feel that we're all kind of on a journey of learning, how to protect ourselves from that. So the difficult situations will probably always be there. Life is largely, for many of us, we're very fortunate, aren't we? And there's lots of good things in life. But, all of the big life events that at some point are likely to happen to people. So, death, divorce, illness, redundancy, all of that stuff, if it's not happening to you, it might be happening to somebody that you love. And that's an impact, a knock-on impact on you. So all of that stuff is going to happen at some point. And it's kind of how we deal with it and how we try and protect ourselves so that we're not just like, if you imagine like just a leaf blowing around in the wind with every little thing that happens, we can learn to really ground ourselves and center ourselves so that no matter what happens, that we are strong. So as I'm talking to you now, I'm kind of thinking of like a tree. So if you think of something like a willow tree, it's got roots down into the ground, it's got a strong trunk, but then its branches will kind of flow and move with the winds, but it doesn't break and it doesn't snap. So I agree with you, it's hard, and I think it's a lifetime's work to really master your emotional response and your thoughts. And we all have days sometimes where life gets the better of us. But I think that with practice, we recognize that actually the situation in itself doesn't have the power to make us feel anything, and it doesn't have the power, to hurt or harm us. So when I say a situation, that could be, a person as well. Nobody or nothing can do that, because it's our thoughts about that situation or that person that's where the feeling comes from, not from the external thing, the circumstance or the person, but from how we perceive it, what we tell ourselves, and how those thoughts make us feel. So it is doable, but I wouldn't say to anyone that, yeah, you can change, you can just do it overnight and you'll never have another, you'll never have an emotional kind of wobble in your life again, because I think that's unrealistic. We're human, and sometimes really tragic things happen, and of course our emotions, in their way, they're all beautiful, and the ones, the real pain, if you lose a loved one, there's beauty in that emotion as well, because you're getting that feeling because you've been lucky and blessed enough to love somebody, loved back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's quite a strong example. But you know, I think all emotions are kind of beautiful, and we need to kind of experience them, if you like, let them run through us, and then once we've processed the thing that's happened, we've allowed ourselves to kind of experience the emotion based on, you know, our thoughts. Then I think often it's a case of, you know, well, how quickly do we want to bounce back? How quickly does it feel appropriate for us to then kind of move on with life and start focusing our thoughts in a different direction?
You said that your mum bought you a book when you were quite young. Have you always
Yeah.
been interested in personal development?
Yeah, so I think since that time, I mean, I've always been, my mum, funnily enough, she had a very Catholic upbringing and was a bit lapsed as a Catholic, actually, because she, you know, she was married and divorced twice, and the Catholic Church in those days, you know, kind of almost pushed out, I think, if you were like a divorcee and things like that. But she always had a really strong faith, and our home always had, you know, all the kind of famous poems and the nice words everywhere, and a lot of it was religious, but sometimes it wasn't, it was just poetry. And so I'd kind of had quite a moral upbringing in a way, and always kind of always was attracted to you know, to the spirituality, I would say, to the idea of there being something greater than ourselves, and just a feeling that, you know, we're here to be happy. And I remember being a little girl growing up in the 70s, and you know, the 70s, I remember, probably because of my environment, I'm sure it's not true for everybody, but I remember seeing a lot of dysfunction around me, both within my own family and, you know, in other families as well.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew quite early on that, you know, that I kind of wanted to help people to be happier, because I knew that we shouldn't be feeling this way. You know, here we are living on this beautiful little planet, and you know, we should be happy, but we're creating all of these experiences that don't feel good. You know, and I was kind of coaching and counselling my mother from about the age of 5 years old. So I think it's something that, you know, personal development and happy living and all of that stuff, it feels almost like, you know, it's in my DNA.
It
Um,
sounds like second nature to you.
Second nature, yeah. And then kind of into adulthood, I found all these books. Personal development was revelation, yeah, both.
I know what you
And
mean.
exactly, and everything that I learned was just like, wow, you know, it really made a difference in my life. And I just feel that, you know, sometimes we're not always brought up knowing the things that we learn later on in life. And you know, you know, what I've learned has enabled me to completely transform, you know, my life, and to an extent myself as well. And it just feels like this is great news that I should be you know, sharing and helping other people to get to that same place, really. I mean, I don't want to say that my work is done. You know, I do find that I am a work in progress, and if I have an aspiration to be a perfect person, and I probably do on some level, I know it's not realistic, but if I have that aspiration, then I'm certainly not there yet. But I always aim to be, you know, a thoroughly decent, you know, individual that, you know, that does the best I can for not just for myself and my family, but for other people as well. Then that's my aim.
So you run classes, don't you? You do. Are you doing any online classes at the moment?
So, do you know, I've mostly done face-to-face training. So all of a sudden, it seems like all the online training that's been happening in the background for probably the last 3 or 4 years, and I've been saying, oh, one day I'm going to take some online training and do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to, you know, create some meditation downloads and blah blah blah. And you know, it's this thing that you keep telling yourself you're going to do, but it's just a little bit further down the line in the future.
Yeah.
So the situation with coronavirus now, and nobody being able to do anything face to face, has really helped to kind of amp up that need for trainers, coaches, consultants everywhere to hone their online skills. So I'm doing a course of training at the moment, which is really about kind of getting your training material and content online. I hope that I'll always be able to do a little bit of workshop face to face, because that's just magically rewarding.
Yeah.
Bodies in the room, I feel, is just the nicest possible way of learning, really. And often on my training courses, I find that if it training for me is not just a one-way thing. It's not just about putting information out there. It's about looking at who are the individuals in the room, what do they know, and then facilitating that learning and sharing, so that everybody goes away not just with the information that I know, but with the information, with with the wisdom of the group, if that makes sense.
Must be quite a satisfying job that you do, isn't it?
It's honestly, Jill, it's such a lovely thing. Facilitating training, for me, is just it's an absolute joy.
You
And
never get to hear the end of someone's story, or not the end, but do you get successes?
definitely, what I tend to find is that people have to go away and implement what they've learned, and then if you're lucky enough to see them further down the line, you will often get that, oh, you'll never guess what happened. Try this thing. So when in my old days of having a corporate job, when you would bump into the same people who came on your courses, in the corridors and things like that, that used to happen frequently. And I still bump into people now, even like 10, 15 years past, when I've delivered training, and they've said, I'll never forget you saying once, and they've come up with something, and I'll just, and they did something with that, and it's, it changed a big area of their life. And I kind of think, did I really say that? I can't remember saying that. And God, say, yes, you did. And I think, oh my God. So
It must be lovely, that thing of helping somebody. At the moment we're going through this very uneasy time, aren't we? We're all feeling, I've had anxiety. I was speaking to a friend this morning who says she's feeling totally overwhelmed by it all.
yeah. I think from what I'm hearing, Jill, is that nobody is getting away scot-free at the moment. So they're not my own words. I was listening to a podcast recently from Lee Harris. So Lee Harris he's kind of a kind of a psychic woo-woo guy, I'll call him. That's not what he would call himself. But he channels messages. He's very kind of in tune with spirit and stuff. And he was just saying, we are, as individuals, there's this thing, we are all part of the collective consciousness or collective unconscious. So we all think that we're these separate beings, and kind of in a way we are, but actually we are all connected on the level of our consciousness. And because of that, we live in this kind of soup, or this sea of human feeling energy. And that, we've got to be in some way influenced by the collective feeling and vibe of what's happening on our planet. I feel that, probably all of us at some stage over this lockdown period, I think for most of us, most of the people I've spoken to already, we've all already had a moment, or half a dozen moments, where we have wobbled. It happened to me for the first time on Sunday. I've been quite stoic and kind of thinking, I had a few days where I felt a bit weird and discombobulated. That's a good word, isn't it? Just a bit kind of like strange and weird, and so I felt that, but largely I'd been okay. So I am a bit more on the introverted side of the spectrum, so I'm quite used to my own company. I'd spent 9 months last year kind of writing and getting a book published, and that was a lot of time on my own. So I'm okay with that. And actually, I live with a family here, so there's never really a dull moment. But I have been quite enjoying it. And then on Sunday, I just had such, when something really silly and insignificant happens, and I just, oh my goodness, I just wobbled and then burst into tears. Like, and with all my personal development, Jill, Yeah, and I just know that, you know, it was something to do with what I was thinking that kind of made me feel that way. And then when that feeling came up, I just kind of gave into it, and I cried for about 20 minutes. And it was just like probably everything from the last 2 months that's been going on, that you kind of, it's just a real strange time. And, you know,
Mhm.
losing their loved ones, and, you know, people with businesses like ourselves, we don't know what's happening with our business, we don't know where the next paycheck's coming from, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it just all came up, and I just allowed myself to have a big old blowout. Felt really exhausted and shattered, and had an early night that night, and then woke up the next morning okay.
You know,
Everything, sorry, yeah, everything just was okay in the kingdom again. And
yeah. When I have moments like that, I normally end up pouring my heart out to one of my brothers or sisters, and then
oh,
within 20 minutes, I'm feeling fine because I've got rid of it. And
yeah.
then I have lots of phone calls, and everyone's really worried about me. And by which time I've passed, I've sort of downloaded almost, and
Yeah. How lovely that you've got all those brothers and sisters, Jill, to be able to support one another. What an absolute gift. I mean, I'm sure it probably was fun and games growing up. It might not have always felt like a gift, but how lucky to have it.
yeah,
So true, isn't it? I feel that, you know, anything that we are, you know, the saying that it's better out than in. And,
yes,
you know, when we have had stuff, and most of us, we're dealing with stuff and it's going around in our head every now and again. And when it's going around in our head, we never really kind of download it. So it's like we have to externalize those thoughts and feelings, and then we
mhm,
feel better. So it's a bit like, you know, some people will want another human to talk to. I feel that's probably the very best way of doing it. Somebody who's a good listener, who will allow you to get everything out, everything that's been going around in your mind without interrupting really, and without chipping in with their own with their own.
yes,
So they let you download, and then it's like, once you've put it outside of yourself, once you've externalized all that, you can kind of see it for what it is really, and then you kind of think, oh, actually that's not as bad. That's not really
no,
all in the end all, and you feel
so
better.
true.
And then once that happens, if they've got something to share, then you can turn the tables and do, um, you know, and repay the favor. Listen to them.
Yeah,
I think we all need, on a deep level, to be, you know, to have somebody to share those thoughts and experiences with.
yeah. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a family member or a
No.
close friend or,
Or a
yeah,
Samaritan, Jill. I do some training for Samaritans, and you know, it can be, in fact sometimes it's easier when it's a, you know, a completely unknown individual, somebody that doesn't know you, doesn't know your history, isn't going to judge you, um, you know, who's just there to, you know, to hear you, to help you download all of that stuff. So I think Samaritans are probably quite busy at the moment, and what a marvelous service they provide,
yeah.
and long may that go on.
There's some amazing people out there at the moment, isn't there? There's some amazing,
It,
um,
totally, totally, and actually, people, a lot of people, all the unsung heroes are having their moment, aren't they? So the people that are often underpaid,
yeah,
undervalued, you know, all of um,
and
the
finally they're being
teachers,
valued.
and they're being valued, and you know, and honestly, there's going to be such a party for them, I think. Did I hear something about um, a festival or something that was going to be put on for key workers at the end of all of this? And I just thought, yeah, that sounds about right too.
I hope that once we have passed, once this has gone, that we don't just go back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think much as I think we're all a bit fed up now, and we think, come on, let's just have everything go back to normal. If, in a way, if it went back to normal tomorrow, I don't know that we, I think it would be very easy to fall back into some of the old habits that
Yeah,
weren't really serving us, or, you know, to be honest, our little planet very well. So I think, you know, life had become out of balance, hadn't it? And the planet had become out of balance,
yeah.
and the way we were living wasn't sustainable. But
Mhm.
perspective, or
Well, communicating with each other as well. It was, I've noticed now people I go for a walk now, and okay, we have to do our distancing, but I'm getting smiles and, good afternoon, good morning, or yeah,
yeah.
people seem to be, I don't know, I feel there's sort of a kindness in the air. I don't know if that's a
I,
bit.
no, no, no. I think you're right. Definitely, and I think community. We're realizing the importance, of community and checking in with people and making sure people are okay.
Mm,
And I think
yeah,
the kindness thing, people have been talking. I think I remember it starting years ago, probably before this as well. But didn't Princess Diana or Lady Di or whatever?
mm,
I can't remember whether it was before she was married
yeah,
or not. Was and she would talk about random acts of kindness, and I've been hearing more and more about that over the last probably kind of five or 10 years. And I think the world, that idea about we're all separate individuals that I mentioned earlier on. Sometimes we are brought up with that kind of feeling like it's kind of double, it's a competitive world, you've got to look after number one. And I think we're realizing actually that no, if somebody's not okay, then we're in a way we're all not okay. We're all affected by everything that happens, however small, and that it's so important for us to kind of be looking out for everybody in our communities, in our families. And sometimes that's hard because some people, I don't want to say that some people are unlovable, but some people do things that challenge us in terms of unconditional love, don't they? Have a think
yeah,
about some criminal acts that happen, and how it's like we find it really difficult to kind of still find to be caring and kind and loving to certain people. But I remember years ago reading or hearing a saying which was, the people that are the hardest to love are the ones that need our love the most. And it just kind of poked me, that saying. And I kind of thought, actually, do you know what? People, I think we're all born with that little spark of goodness. We're all a chip off from the same source, or a little
mm,
same source. And
yeah.
we'll
I think that
have,
I feel there are a lot more nicer people in the world than evil
yeah,
people in the world. I feel that,
yeah.
and I've always felt that, and I've always felt that the media have been the ones that are always highlighting the bad.
It's
But
true. Definitely, Jill. I think that, in a way, because human beings, we've got this thing called negativity bias, where the majority of us pay more attention to negative information than positive information. So, of course, the media know this, and they know that that's what gets viewers and that's what sells papers and things like that. So that's probably one of the reasons why we report more negative things, because first of all we focus on them more, and secondly it's kind of it's good for business, which sounds really depressing, doesn't it? But
uh,
but I think we people are at our core, we are good, and some people get a bit twisted or warped along the way for whatever reason. And and I don't like to believe in evil. I think that sometimes it's just an absence of light, kind of goodness and light. And sometimes we just need to help the people who have lost their light to find it again. I mean, maybe that's a bit naive, I don't know, but I feel that that by and large, my experience has been that people from all walks of life, and um, I've kind of had experience in many different walks of life as well, people from all kind of, what would you call it, social, economic
yeah,
environments. And I found that people are basically decent wherever you go. And
yeah,
actually, that sometimes the people who have the least, they're the ones that are the most giving, because they know what it's like to go without. The
yeah,
people have suffered are often the ones that you know, are helping others and things like that. So it's interesting.
No, I totally agree. No, I've worked with the media.
Yeah.
And at the moment, though, they are actually asking for good stories.
Yeah.
They are actually asking for quirky, happy stories. I had
They're
two journalists
learning.
email me the other day asking me for quirky, happy stories. And, you know, I think,
Good.
you know, they need to uplift the nation too, don't they?
Yeah, isn't that great? And I sometimes think that it takes some bad stuff to happen sometimes for us to see, you know, the spirit of the blitz kind of thing. You know, human beings at their essence, they're good. Everybody's out there pretty much. I know I'm making a generalization, but lots of people out there are stepping up. They're doing wonderful things to help their friends and neighbors. You know, sometimes bad stuff brings out the best in people, and actually even with the media, they're realizing that in difficult times, you know, it's kind of, we need to bring out the best in people and report all those wonderful things that are happening, the ways in which people are helping, you know, the people who are raising money for charity. And there've just been some really gorgeous, heartwarming stories, haven't there,
They have.
of
Yeah.
people doing just that. So what a shame that it takes a coronavirus for us all to, you know, kind of start thinking as one and supporting one another. But it definitely, there's, you know, so many bonuses have come out of this and will continue to come out. So in a way, if it lasted a little bit longer just to help us, I think it might be better, because it might help to really embed some of this change and make us realise, actually, although we would like to go back to some of the things connected with the way things were, there's some stuff that we're not going to repeat. There's some changes that we're not going to let happen anymore, because we've seen actually that life can be better when we, you know, when we remember our sense of community. And what are we here for if not to help one another?
Well, on that
Ooh,
point,
isn't it?
it was lovely chatting to you this afternoon. I think we've
Thank you,
got the
Jill, and
world to
you.
right.
Oh, that's
And
lovely.
I'll see you again in the normal world.
See you in the normal world, and big hugs to you there, ready and waiting.
Okay then, take care.
Take care, Jill. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.